So we're going to start like we always do. We usually do a what's new, what's next, what's needed format. Today, there's not a lot new. So we are, um, you know, past bill introduction. We are almost all the way through legislative hearings. So there's not a lot new that's happening or being introduced, but we do have plenty of things next and needed. So what's next? As I said, the legislature is dealing with 684 bills that were introduced this session. The great majority of them have had hearings, are done with hearings. We're done with hearings this week. Judiciary Committee still has some left. They are often or always the committee that receives the most bills. And so they will be doing hearings continuing through next week. But every other committee has heard all of the bills that were in there that were referenced to them. So priority bill deadline is coming up. And, just to provide some background on what that means, with all of those bills introduced, there is no way that the legislature would have the time to debate every single bill on the floor. There's and even they won't have time to debate every bill that is advanced from committee in many cases. So there is a framework to prioritize bills that are advanced, and that is through priority bills. So every legislator gets to select a priority bill. So that means there will be 49 of those. The deadline for them to do that is March 11th. So it's next Thursday. So that is really important and a big day because if we want our bill to have an opportunity to be advanced, we really need to find a priority vehicle, a way that it can move that will be prioritized. So beyond individual senator priorities, every committee, every standing committee has an opportunity to prioritize bills. Most committees can have two priorities. And then there's another avenue that is called the speaker priority. So the speaker of the legislature can select 25 bills as priorities. So those are the priority structure. And I just want to reiterate that at this point in the session, we really need a priority designation to move our bill to the front of the line and ensure that it gets taken more seriously by the committee if they haven't advanced it yet, and then it sort of jumps ahead of other bills in floor debate. There's also another option called consent calendar. And, if you've served on a board, it's much like, the idea is that it's much like a consent agenda. It is something that is intended to be non-controversial, relatively simple and easy. So perhaps it doesn't have the gravitas for a speaker priority or other priority mechanism. It's something that the legislature can and should quickly and easily address. And so the speaker is able to select a number of bills that he would put on consent calendar. And so there are some different rules that govern that process. But it's essentially an avenue to move bills forward that somewhat fast tracks them, but doesn't also require a speaker or committee or an individual senator priority. Typically to do that, your bill needs to be without opposition and generally without cost, without substantial fiscal impact. So we're always trying to find things that we can run on consent calendar. And then what's also next is, because they're done with hearings or almost done with hearings, we will start to see floor debate. So this is what it means when a bill has advanced from the committee and it's now sent to the legislative floor. So it will be debated by all 49 senators. They'll be doing floor debate next week in the mornings. So they'll convene in the morning and take up priority bills that have already been designated. And I saw that Jill put in the chat the list of priority bills right now that we know. But again, we'll start to see more of these rolling in next week as well. A lot of bills that many senators want to prioritize are probably still in committee at this point. And so there will be a frantic push to get bills out of committee that folks want to prioritize. And the reason is, senators get one priority bill and they will be reluctant to prioritize a bill that they cannot have some level of certainty they can get out of committee. Because if you prioritize a bill that's stuck in committee, it makes it really hard to move that bill forward and advance that. So there will be lots of conversations with committee members about trying to get bills out of committee next week so that they can be prioritized by senators and available for floor debate. So some things that are helpful for floor debate. As we prepare for floor debate, this is when you will start to see from us these calls for you to contact your senator, to reach out to your senator individually. Up until this point, we've really been focused on committees, right? And so we need to target committee members. And if your senator is on a relevant committee, that's where most of the information has been targeted, is on the committee level. Well, now as these bills move to the floor, we'll need to broaden our scope and we'll need to be targeting all the senators so we can educate them on the importance of our bills and why we need the legislature to take action. Part of that and part of our advocacy strategy will be to, again, utilize the new feature that the legislature has made available this session, which is the public comment, the online public comment feature. And I'm going to take just a minute to walk us through that so y'all can feel comfortable with that process. We think this is a real opportunity because I want to tell you how this becomes available to senators and how we hope it will be used. So it creates basically a database of people who have reached out on a given issue. And the correspondence, the online comments are available to all senators. So what we anticipate happening is when a bill comes up on the floor for debate, a senator could be sitting there and they might think, I'll check in and see what people are saying about this bill. And so they pull it up, and what we want them to be greeted with is a tremendous, if not overwhelming, amount of comments in support of the bill, in many cases for us. And then the senator is also able to search that database by their own legislative district. So not only will they be able to see everyone who submitted comments, but they will also then be able to see, well, who from my district weighed in on this and what did they say? And I just think this feature will be tremendously impactful as we advocate for these bills and show that they matter to Nebraskans and show that people are paying attention and want to advance legislation that supports opportunities for women and girls. So I'm going to take just a minute, and if my computer decides to cooperate, and walk you through how you can do the online comment. So this is nebraskalegislature.gov. This is the legislature's website. I'm going to go up here in the top right-hand corner. You see it says search current bills. You can put in your bill number. So I'm going to put in 451, which is the natural hair non-discrimination bill. And then I'm going to click the search button here. This pulls up all of the information about the bill. So there's a lot of stuff here. But what we are hoping to showcase today is you see this button right here in the middle that says submit comments online. So you click on that. It tells you that this is going to be available to all legislators and staff. It may or may not be read during hearings and floor debate. There should be no expectation of privacy, and these comments will be made available to others upon your request. And so you click I understand. And I want to note, right, anytime you correspond with legislators, you should be aware that it is possible that they may be so moved by your input that they may very well read it on the floor, or they may share it with their colleagues because they found you so persuasive. So if there is a reason that you would like to not share your information publicly, this is probably not the best option for you. I'm happy to speak with you privately if you feel very strongly that your story needs to be lifted up, but you don't feel comfortable engaging in this manner, and we can find other ways to sort of anonymize, but also lift up your story. But for those of you who this would work, and this seems like a viable option, we think it's really important. So you submit some information about yourself. It asks for your address, your mailing address, because that tells them who your senator is, right? That's how you can find what district you're a part of. It will ask for your email, and I want to note that there will be a link sent to your email to confirm your comment. Checking that you are who you say you are and you didn't provide a false email is the intent there. So you'll click that you're representing yourself unless you have authority to represent another organization. Perhaps you serve on a board, perhaps there's some instance in which you would be representing a group. And then tell your position. So proponent, you support something; opponent, you oppose something; neutral is you want to provide input but don't have a position one way or another on the bill. And then this portion, you just add a couple of sentences about why you support the bill or oppose the bill. It doesn't have to be a dissertation. You don't have to make every argument. It is really just an opportunity to say why you care about it. If you do have lived experience with the policy, it is really impactful and important to lift that up if you feel comfortable sharing. It is the stories of impacted folks that often provide so much movement and fuel successful legislative efforts. So that's why we're really excited about this opportunity for those of us who are not registered lobbyists but care about these bills to weigh in a way that is relatively approachable. You can do it. It takes less than 5 minutes. I would also say don't hesitate to draw from the talking points that you've seen us use, or grab a couple lines from our fact sheet. It's important that these comments are individualized and that they're unique to you, but it doesn't mean you have to do all individual or unique research. You can pull from the things that we put together, and that's really our intent when we put those resources out there, is to try to make this as easy as possible for you to engage. Jill, is there anything else that you want me to talk about in the online comment piece?
It's addicting, so get ready.
I'm sorry, can you say that again loud?
I said it's addicting. Once I got started, I was like, what other bill can I comment on?
Yeah, I would say I'm pretty excited about this resource. I think it's something that we've been hoping the legislature could do for a long time. So I want to make sure we're making the best use of it for the issues that we care about. Another thing that's coming up, so as I said, most hearings are done, but the Judiciary Committee continues. And a big hearing coming up next week would be LB 276. This will be heard in front of Judiciary Friday morning, the 12th. This bill removes the statutory requirement that a medical doctor must be physically present in the room when medication to terminate a pregnancy is provided. And I've offered a couple of additional talking points here on the slide, but the reality is that telemedicine has been an innovative and safe way to provide many types of healthcare and many types of conversations around prescription medication. there have been intentional barriers created between a person and their medical provider when it comes to abortion care. And so LB 276 would remove a barrier that has been constructed for without medical necessity. And so we hope to lift that specific restriction on the delivery of the full scope of reproductive health care through telemedicine by supporting LB 276. This bill was introduced by Senator Megan Hunt. This will be an important place to lift up your voice in support of reproductive health care for women and for all, as well as ensuring that politics does not come between a person and their medical provider. So again, that'll be in Judiciary next Friday on telemed abortion. So additional things that are needed. As I said, the priority deadline begins to really focus the issues that will continue to be debated by the legislature. There were 684 bills introduced. The Women's Fund took a position on 46 of them, which is a new world record for us. And so I'm going to give an overview of a little bit of what I think will be prioritized. Again, none of this is official or permanent at this point. And I'm going to also talk about some bills that we are still really trying hard to find a priority for, and if not a priority on their own, a vehicle that they can be amended on. So I'll start with what we are really hopeful and fairly confident will be prioritized. One is LB 451. So we've talked about this bill a lot. This is the bill that would prohibit natural hair discrimination in employment. This bill, has a specific impact for Black women whose hairstyles are over-policed and over-regulated in the workforce, and it results in specific and harmful economic impacts. It creates workplaces that are inequitable, and we know that if we advance this policy, which does directly impact Black women primarily, it will have an impact in creating more broadly workplaces that are more inclusive, more equitable, and in general require employers to really consider what sort of policies they're putting in place and the ways that they may have disparate impact on BIPOC folks and women as well. So LB 451, we are hopeful. It has been led by Senator Terrell McKinney and introduced by Senator McKinney. We are hopeful that he will choose to prioritize this bill and we can get it advanced from the Business and Labor Committee and pass it again through the legislature like was done last year. Hopefully this time we can the bill can seek and receive the support of the governor so we don't have to deal with a veto override. But if so, we would hopeful that the legislature can take that on and override a veto so we can send a message to particularly Black women, but Black folks and all folks of color who are treated unfairly in the workplace because of who they are, that Nebraska wants to be a welcoming place and supports equitable workplaces. So 451, we are hopeful Senator McKinney will prioritize. And Ashley Spivey at IB Black Girl, if you had an opportunity to hear her a couple weeks ago when she was on, IB Black Girl has set a goal for 500 online comments for 451. I don't think we're there yet, but I think it's awesome. So if you can weigh in on that bill, that would be tremendously helpful, especially when we get to the floor, to demonstrate that both folks who have been impacted by such discrimination, but also allies in the workplace. This is something that's incredibly important to all of us. And so that's the message we want to convey through the online comments. LB 485 is a bill introduced by Senator Wendy DeBoer, and this bill would increase access to affordable childcare by increasing eligibility for childcare subsidy. So there is a program in Nebraska that supports families, working families, by helping them and providing assistance in affording childcare. We have some of the lowest eligibility levels in the country at which we support working families in affording childcare. And we know that childcare is incredibly important to keep kids safe while parents are at work, to start to set the foundation for a strong educational experience, in the rest of their life. Early childhood education is critical, and it's critical to the workforce so that working parents have dependable childcare they can count on and then contribute to the workforce. We are hopeful that Senator DeBoer will prioritize LB 485. I would say that if this is an issue that you or someone you know have been impacted by, if you've had to struggle to navigate the eligibility levels of childcare, if you have struggled to afford childcare and may have benefited from this program if it had been more widely available. If you are a childcare provider and you have examples of families who have had to navigate going on and off of this program and what that has meant for them, I think it's important. We'd love to hear from you. And if you've been an employer, we've heard from employers who say, they've had employees who've had to turn down raises or turn down additional hours or turn down promotions because if they took those advancements in their career, they would, cross that eligibility threshold and become ineligible, and all of a sudden have to pay hundreds of dollars in childcare on their own just because they got a small raise. So we are really excited and think this is a tremendous priority and are really looking forward to having this debate and advancing this policy. LB 108 is sort of a similar policy in increasing access to food assistance through SNAP. It would adjust the income eligibility. Senator John McCollister introduced this bill, and we are hopeful that he will prioritize. So for all of these bills, online public comments would be tremendously helpful. If you are really passionate or have lived experience that you think is important and relevant, please submit online comments, but also if you're really excited about these bills, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I'm here to support you and how we can best elevate your perspective, your experience, your stories. So please don't hesitate to do that. Other bills that are, we're shopping, quote unquote, for a priority, or we're hoping we can find a way to move forward. Our LB 118, this bill was introduced by Senator Adam Warfeld, and it strengthens protection orders. So domestic abuse protection orders, sexual assault protection orders, and harassment protection orders by increasing the duration. Right now, protection orders are only for a year. And so as originally introduced, LB 118 or LB 118 expanded that to 5 years. It also eliminated a notarization requirement. Right now, you have to have your application for a protection order notarized, and that creates significant real barriers, like functional barriers as well, practical barriers, as well as safety challenges for survivors. And so 118 proposed to lift that notarization requirement. That is in Judiciary Committee, and we don't have a priority at this moment. LB 183 was introduced by Senator Megan Hunt, and this is a bill that would require the provision of emergency contraception. So information about, as well as dispensing emergency contraception for sexual assault survivors when they show up in the hospital after their assault seeking care. And I want to be very clear, this is about pregnancy prevention. Emergency contraception prevents a pregnancy. It does not end a pregnancy that has already been established. So that is, been the point of contention around that bill. And I just think it's important to make it clear. That was heard by the Health and Human Services Committee and remains in committee, but, could be tremendously impactful for survivors of sexual assault to be able to prevent pregnancies that may result from their victimization. LB 249 was introduced by Senator Patty Pansing Brooks. This is the bill that would prohibit potential employers from asking applicants what they made in their prior job. This is an attempt to disrupt the cycle of pay discrimination that impacts women and specifically impacts women of color, but also all folks of color. We know that wage discrimination is a result of many factors, but research is very clear that that specific discriminatory impacts cannot be removed. We cannot know that the pay that a worker received in their prior employment was not held down by discrimination. And so then by allowing them to carry that pay level into their next employment allows or does not provide an avenue to actually escape such discrimination. So if we ban salary history from being factored in for this new job, an employee is able to receive a job offer that's based upon the qualifications that they bring to the work and the way the company values the position, as opposed to what my last employer thought of me and how that was reflected in my pay structure. LB 7 and LB 519, these are both Good Samaritan bills. They provide an avenue for folks who may have been engaged in sex work and risk being charged or arrested for such work. It provides an avenue for them to come forward in the case of they are victims of violence, to seek medical care or to report the crime of violence to law enforcement without risk of being arrested, charged, prosecuted for sex work related crimes. Additionally, 519 is the same philosophy of Good Samaritan. It provides legal protections for a victim of sexual assault who comes forward and reports or seeks medical care, but perhaps they had been under the influence of drugs or alcohol, illegally, potentially underage drinking. It would provide a protection that they can still come forward without fear of being charged for those kinds of charges. Both of those bills remain in Judiciary Committee at this moment. LB 20 was introduced by Senator Carol Blood. We had a great hearing on this bill last year. So this is a bill that would require insurance coverage to cover contraception in the duration that is prescribed by your medical provider. So as it works now, many times a provider will give a person a year-long prescription of birth control. But because of the way insurance coverage works, when you go to the pharmacy to get that filled, they'll only give you a month or 3 months at a time. And so what this bill does is says that insurance should not be dictating patient care. It should be up to the provider. So if your provider feels comfortable providing a year at a time, you can receive a year at a time when you go to the pharmacy to pick that up. If your provider doesn't feel comfortable and only feels comfortable providing you 3 months at a time, that's fine, that's still allowed. But what this bill does is says that insurance can't dictate that care. It should be up to the provider. We had a really great hearing. There was some opposition from insurance companies, specifically Blue Cross Blue Shield opposed, as well as the Association of Insurance that represents the insurance industry. And additionally, the Nebraska State Chamber of Commerce opposed this bill. So, you know, if you have places to have conversations with those entities about their opposition to removing barriers to contraception, I think that would be great and helpful. LB 258 and LB 290, these are both bills we've talked about before and have been working on for several years. 258 was introduced by Senator Tony Vargas, and it is paid sick and safe leave. So this is would allow you to earn an hour for every 30 hours worked of paid leave that can be used in the case of illness, or the safe leave component refers to actions you need to take to ensure safety for yourself and your family following an incident of gender-based violence. And then LB 290 is a broader, for longer term leave, creates an insurance program that employees or employers in this case would pay into. And then when they need to access longer term leave in the case of serious illness or birth of a child or introduction of a child to a family into their family, they can access paid leave through this insurance program. And then finally, LB 320, we are hopeful this one will be prioritized, but I just want to raise it up. This would provide housing protections for domestic violence victims. So right now, a person can be evicted if there is a crime committed on the property that they are renting, even if they are not the perpetrator. So if they are a victim of domestic violence in their rental property, it is possible that they can be evicted for that. So this bill would make it clear that victims of domestic violence are protected from eviction as a result of their victimization. It additionally provides an avenue to terminate a lease in the case of domestic violence. So it's really important. This is an issue that domestic violence advocates or providers and advocates for victims of domestic violence have been working on for a long time. So we are hopeful this year that this will move forward. And I just wanted to name it in case anyone on the call had a particular interest in this topic. I'm happy to continue to chat with you offline or through the comments and questions. All of these bills would benefit from submitting online comment. All of these bills would benefit from additional advocacy. So whether that means, you know, reaching out to the introducer, sharing your story, expressing how important you think these bills are. And that is what we'll be doing as we, in the next, 4 days, 5 days, try to find a home or a priority for some of these other pieces of legislation. This is not all of the things that the Women's Fund is going to continue to fight for the remainder of session, but these are things that had significant energy and interest from senators, that it feels like there might be a path forward in priority. But as I said, we took positions on 46 bills. So I'm happy to chat through others. These are just places where we have, taken sort of leadership role and have been, and seems like there might be an avenue that we can push these forward in priority designation. So with that, that's really all I had planned to chat about today. We'll know so much more next week on the 11th after priority deadline. And you will begin to see much more of our language shifting to, reach out to your senator, share your online comment. Jill has posted in the chat our Be an Advocate webpage, where we tried to provide resources to help you feel comfortable in weighing in and using your voice. You'll find there more information about the specific bills as they move forward. And as we create more resources on bills, they'll be housed there. And then our share, there's a Your Voice Matters resource, which provides an overview of, what could be included in an effective communication to a legislator, and a bit of an explanation about why those elements are included. Don't feel like you have to live by that. It really is what is most important to you to share, but we feel pretty strongly at the Women's Fund that we want to create resources that support you and make it as easy as possible to lift up your voice in this process. And then additionally, there's a link to our shareables. We have an incredible public awareness team that that helps us amplify and, as Jill says, get your friends fired up and engaged about different issues, and using those on social media in whatever way makes sense to you is really important in creating energy and momentum and a movement around many of these issues. So please feel free to check those out and use and share and encourage others to do so as well. Beyond that, when we're not talking to you every other Friday, we're sending out email updates. And so you can sign up for those if you aren't already. The link is on the screen. Jill, our team, has put together an awesome Power Hour playlist that you heard at the beginning of this call and you'll hear at the end as we sign out. But check that out, enjoy it, get pumped up. And then we often are able to do the most time-sensitive updates on social media. So make sure you follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest and greatest. And then my contact information is on the bottom of this slide. Please do not hesitate to reach out if you have a question, if there's something that you care about. It is so important to me and to the Women's Fund that we support you in using your voice. And so I genuinely mean it when I say don't hesitate to reach out. Kelsey, our Policy and Research Associate, her email is on there as well. We are here for you, here to support you. So with that, I'm happy to open it up to any questions. If there are any, you can feel free to ask me about other bills that I haven't talked about. I may know something, I may not, I'll tell you either way. So, so if there's something that I didn't talk about that you're particularly interested in, don't hesitate to ask, and I'll tell you what I know, and I'll tell you if I don't.
Tiffany, I'll just vocally ask you, if somebody, if the bill's already had a hearing, is it too late to add a comment?
Absolutely not. Thanks for that, Jill. That's an important point. It's not too late. And that's the really great part about the online comments, is that they will continue to collect and aggregate, and they'll continue to be available. So as I said, they'll probably be most impactful by the time when we get to floor debate on an issue. Legislators will be able to look through those and see what people are saying. And we just aren't there yet on many of our bills. They haven't gotten to floor debate. So you've got time, you will continue to have time. And I would say it's still important all the way up until we've passed these bills and sent them to the legislature. So there's 3 rounds of debate that we'll have to pass it 3 times through the floor. And say they debate it the first time and you read a news article about it and you're all fired up about it and you want to weigh in, do it. It's not too late until they pass these things. It is not too late. So again, I think that's a really exciting feature about the online comment. It will be somewhat evergreen through the duration of these issues at the legislature. And I would also say, this is a biennium. We run in a 2-year cycle. So this is the first year of a 2-year cycle. If they don't take action on a bill and it sits in committee until next year, and then they can take it up next year, that means we have all summer to really energize around these issues. So it's not, if you've missed the hearing, it's not too late.
Tiffany, there's a question in the chat. Allison asks, what bills do you feel the best about passing this session?
I try to never count chickens before hatched. I feel really strongly and confident about the incredible engagement and interest and passion around LB 451, the Natural Hair Non-Discrimination Bill. As I've said, we've had the opportunity to support the leadership of IB Black Girl in this space. You know, Senator Terrell McKinney and his incredible legislative aid have provided like really strong energy and leadership for this issue behind the scenes. There has been engagement with the governor's office and representatives of his office to try to ensure that whatever concerns he had that informed his veto last session have been addressed. And so hopefully there can be some shared understanding about the best way forward and the importance of this legislation for the governor as well. We've already passed the legislature once, right? So I feel very excited and very excited about the prospect of getting that bill through this session. I am incredibly excited about the child care bill, LB 485. As I said, I think coming off of the pandemic, there is a very clear understanding of the priority of childcare and the role that that plays, especially in our business community. I think we saw many employers doing their best to support employees in this difficult time of, you know, quarantine and childcare challenges and schools being varying levels of in-person. So I think there is a lot of energy and understanding that childcare is a fundamental part of our economy. The Omaha Chamber of Commerce supports LB 485. The State Chamber of Commerce supports LB 485. There is federal money that has been made available to support access to childcare and support the childcare industry in recovering from this pandemic. So I think there are a lot of things that have fallen into place that will hopefully allow Nebraska to make the investments in our child care system, especially for low-income families who may be struggling with that tremendous expense. So I'm really hopeful about LB 485. Similarly with the SNAP bill that also increases access to SNAP. We have support for that from the business community as well. So those are a couple that I am really, really excited about and hopeful that we can get them across the finish line. Additionally, we have a couple of bills dealing with domestic assault and sexual violence that we feel pretty passionate about and have had really strong testimony and support from survivors. So I think there will be some movement in supporting survivors of domestic and sexual violence. I'm not quite sure which of the bills we're going to get the movement on, but I am hopeful that we can have some of those important conversations about creating systems that support survivors on the floor as well. Any other questions? And again, I want to say that's just the stuff that's within our purview, right? There's lots of other things happening, lots of other advocacy organizations that take the lead on issues that that we support and partner, but don't really take a lead role. And so that's my somewhat limited scope, but there may be many other things that will take a greater role in as they move forward.
All right, I'm going to play us out.
All right.
Bringing it back, you're taking it higher, no limit.